Premier Netball League returns this weekend with Platinum Queens clashing against ZDF Queens.
And now for our first story. Zimbabweans from all walks of life thronged various polling stations across the country this Wednesday to elect their leadership for the next 5 years. President Emmerson Mnangagwa and the First Lady, Dr. Auxilium Mnangagwa, were among those who cast their votes in Kwekwe this morning.
The ZANU-PF presidential candidate and also the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe has cast his vote accompanied by members of the First family at Sherwood Primary School in the Chirumanzu, Zimbabwe constituency. There were 2 boxes, that of the President and the House of Assembly, as the councillor for Ward 31, Tichafa Shitate, was not contested and won unopposed. The 2 contestants for the House of Assembly seats are Obed Chipere of Triple C and Jacob Chokururama of ZANU-PF. Soon after casting his vote, the President, Comrade Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, spoke to journalists on his expectations.
I've done my duty as a citizen of the country to decide who should be president of this country. I made the decision that I know him. I think this time around there's been more awareness than in the past. I think we shall have a higher turnout this time around. And besides, we now have more than 6 million people registered as voters. Last time we had only about 5 million. So there's 1.5 million more. And I think this time around there was quite publicity. And most of our people, even the younger generation, are very interested to cast their vote, because I've seen in the media that, for the first time we wanted to show that we also have rights to make our decisions. It's very good.
President, do you think you're going to take this vote?
If I think I'm not going to take it, then I'll be foolish. Everyone who contests, if you're going to rest to win. And precisely is what I'm doing.
In this tranquil environment, across the length and breadth of this country, and equating with the 1980 elections that ushered in independence, President Emmerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa spoke about it also.
Your key message to the nation?
Peace, 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 non-violence. During, before, and after.
Yes, Zimbabwe decides her destiny, despite what the prophets of doom had predicted. The people of Ward 131 in the Kwekwe area, Sherwood, were at the venue by 6 o'clock in the morning, waiting to cast their votes, which only began at 7 o'clock. By 8:30, the president was there and he also cast his vote. Ruben Barwe, ZBC News, Sherwood, Kwekwe.
Other presidential candidates also cast their ballots at their respective polling stations, with all of them confident of getting the mandate to lead the country.
10 candidates are vying for presidency, and ZBC News managed to speak to some of them, including Advocate Nelson Chamisa of the Triple C and Professor Lovemore Maduku of the NCA, after casting their ballots in Harare.
We know that we are winning this election. We have won in this election. There is absolute support in the countryside and in the urban areas. There is no way any other candidate is going to win in this country.
I'm very confident that we've had a very good election process, and for our parties, the NCA, we are happy with the process.
Elsewhere, ZCPD President Mr. Trust Chikohora voted in Gweru, while the only female candidate vying for presidency, Miss Elizabeth Valerio, representing UZA, cast her ballot in Wange.
The process was very smooth. I'm here at Muunga Primary School in Ascot in Gweru. We got here, we were shown the voters' rolls, which were pasted outside the classroom. I managed to search for my name. It was in alphabetical order. I found it with my family. Everything was smooth. I've managed to cast my vote.
I think everyone seemed very organized at my polling station. It's an important day for Zimbabwe to be able to choose the leaders that will be representing them for the next 5 years.
Other presidential candidates are Mr. Joseph Busha of the Free Zim Congress, Mr. Blessing Kasia Muru representing ZIPP, Mr. Wilbert Mobaiwa of NPC, Mr. Gwinyai Henry Muzorewa UANC, and Harry Peter Wilson DOP. Josephine Mugio, ZBC News.
Apart from other presidential candidates who cast their votes this Wednesday, there were several other high-profile figures who were spotted at various polling stations across the country.
Vice President General retired Dr. Constantino Chiwenga and his wife Keno Minyotawo Chiwenga cast their votes at Heritage School in Harare.
This is a perfect experience which I have had. What we now see, the peaceful lining up of people going to show, to express their will is very important. It must start as it is and must continue to the end. And tomorrow we must start building the Zimbabwe that we want.
ZANU-PF Vice President and Second Secretary Comrade Kembo Mohadi was at Beitbridge Government Primary School in Beitbridge East constituency.
The process is good. I think it's smooth and seems it's peaceful and everything is going on very well. If it is going the same way everywhere, then we are very happy. This is what we have been preaching, that there be peace and tranquility before, during and after.
ZBC News also caught up with ZANU-PF National Chairperson Comrade Opamuchinguri Kashiri in Mutasa and ZANU-PF Women's League Secretary for Administration Comrade Monica Muchangwa.
I'm very happy to have casted my vote, particularly at this center. This is where I was born, and for me this is very important. It's my constitutional right to choose a leader of my choice who will represent me in the next 5 years. There is a very peaceful environment at this place.
Tiri pano pa Gomba Komba School kuzimunya Marangi ndipo pa ndavhotera muklasi yandakadzidzira ku primary school, saka ndafamba ndandine basa ku Harare. Ndafamba ndichiona vanhu mune runyararo runoshamisa muZimbabwe, runodadisa, runoratidza kuti vana veZimbabwe vakuziva zvavanoda, vanovhota murunyararo. Kwese kwandapfuura ndaona maqueues kuratidza kuti vanhu vari kuda kuisa mutungamiri wavanoda kuti ava vava mutungamirire for the next 5 years.
The majority of polling stations across the country opened at 7 a.m. and closed at 7 p.m. in accordance with the law. Olin Andori, ZBC News, Harare.
Zimbabwe is among the countries that are participating at the BRICS summit, which is underway in Sandton, South Africa, with Vice President General retired Dr. Constantino Chiwenga representing President Emmerson Mnangagwa. We get more from Abigail Tembo.
Leaders from 5 emerging world economies, including Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, are meeting in Johannesburg, South Africa for the 15th BRICS summit running from the 22nd to the 24th of this month. Zimbabwe is among the African countries which have been invited by President Cyril Ramaphosa to the summit, with Vice President General retired Dr. Constantino Chiwenga standing in for President Emmerson Mnangagwa.
I'm here in South Africa to represent His Excellency the President, Dr. Comrade Emmerson Damzo Mnangagwa, to the BRICS meeting, which as you know has already started, but we will be participating in it from this evening to tomorrow, and I will deliver the President's address.
BRICS is a bloc of emerging economies that currently make up a quarter of the global economy. At least 22 other countries, including Zimbabwe, have formally applied to join the bloc. Abigail Tembo, ZBC News, Johannesburg.
Voting has ended in areas where polling stations opened at 7 a.m. in accordance with the electoral law, while those which opened later have a 12-hour threshold.
Good evening to you from Harare. We are now in Mazowe. It is almost time to call it a day here at Stories polling station, which is just a few kilometers from Jumbo Tenov. They started at 7:45 a.m. So shortly we expect that they will be closing the polls at 19:45. So on our way here, just a few blocks from here, we managed to speak to some of the voters who came here earlier during the day just to find out their experience, the mood, the atmosphere, and those are people who came in and cast their ballots and managed to go back to their workstations. Right, Maijam, maenda kunovhota nguva uye zvanga zviri sei?
Ndaenda kunovhota inini kuma past 6. Ndikasvika vanhu vakamira palaini, ndikamira palaini. Inini ndaitawe number 4. Pavhurwa polling station kuti vanhu pa polling station kuti vanhu vatange kuvhota. Ndaitawe number 4 mukuvhota. Zvekuti kuma past 8 ndandaropedza kuvhota ndakutoenda kumba kuti ndigadzirwe ndiwe kubasa.
My chamu there, one of the people working here, she says she decided to go early in the morning. After casting a ballot, it's back to business as usual for her. My Nigel, maswera sei?
Maskara sei.
Tuesday. Pamavhota nhasi kakari kechingani kuvhota uye zvafamba zvakanaka here?
Zvafamba zvakanaka kechi2. Ndakamvhota 2018. Pana vari zvinhu kechi2. Zvafamba zvakanaka tavhota murunyararo.
Hapana mhirizhonga yanga ichiitika?
Aiwa hapana. Nyaya dzanga dzakanaka.
Aiwa zvinhu zvakanaka, taenda kuma 8 tatosvika vanhu vatotanga kuvhota. Tavhota zvakanaka ende takaskirwa takangobva kunovhota tikatoya kuno kubasa.
So from Mazowe at Stories Primary School polling station, we call it a day.
It's a very good evening to you all our viewers. I visited the polling stations in Kadoma Central, Chegutu East and West constituencies, as well as the Mondoro-Ngezi constituency, where I gathered that the polling stations opened at 7 in the morning. The situation was calm and peaceful, with all the logistics being in place to the extent that it was efficient, and it also made it easy for those who were voting in terms of casting their ballots, as well as in terms of the provision of services by relevant authorities. I am now here at the Chegutu Civic Center, and it is 7 o'clock in the evening, and they have already closed the polling process. What is now being done is a verification exercise pending the immediate effect implementation of the counting of the votes, to the extent that there has been a general satisfaction in terms of the voter turnout and those logistics that were put in place to ensure that the voting process become a success. So for now, we are now waiting for the counting of the votes.
It has been a long day as the people of Masvingo joined the rest of the country in choosing their preferred presidential candidate and National Assembly members and councillors. This news crew started in Gutu district and visited a number of polling stations. Among them, Wiru Primary School, Chisheche, Beza in Masvingo North, Victoria Junior in Masvingo Eben, and Rujeko. Currently, we are in Chivi Central constituency. All these polling stations opened at exactly 7 a.m. We managed to talk to those who were voting, and they confirmed that the process went on smoothly. Again, we spoke to presiding officers who were manning various polling stations across the province, and they confirmed that the process went on peacefully. Now, 7 o'clock deadline has already passed. Many polling stations here in Chivi Central have closed.
Done and dusted. The first phase of the election process has just concluded here in Chivu, and it signals the start of another phase, which is going to be a very long and arduous journey for the election agents as well as the polling officers as they enter into the verification and vote counting process, which will eventually come up with a winner for these general elections. But suffice to say that the voting process and the announcement of the winner will only be limited to the National Assembly and councillor candidates for this election, for this process that's taking place over the duration of tonight. So This room where we are standing is the command center, and we will be linking up with the authorities here to give us a confirmation, hopefully at the earliest convenience, as soon as they are done with vote counting, and they will emerge with the final details as to who would have won in the various positions that were under contestation during the duration of this general election. But so we'll give you the final details and the outcome as soon as the details are availed to us.
Scores of voters peacefully exercised their constitutional right to vote for candidates of their choice at different polling stations in the Manicaland province this Wednesday. A site of the elderly in a Scotch Cat in Hande village in Buera North constituency indicated the importance of today's national process.
Mafambira zvaita tasvika ndobva tapinda ndobva takunovhota tichivhotera vatachida kuti tivhotere ndobva tapedza ndokubva tabuda tasvika zvikanzi vanochembere dziri kudonzwana nevanorwara nevanorema tikaenda muraini redu tikapinda tikavhota vasingagona vachibatsirwa isu tinogona tanyora tega.
Ndinogona sokuti maitiro atanga chiteko kwanga right hapana chachitinetsa.
A peaceful environment characterized all the polling stations visited by this news crew.
Toda kutenda Mwari. Zvakamira zvakanaka zvine runyararo. Tabatwa zvakanaka, tagashirwa zvakanaka nevari kuvhotesa vacho. Tikaseviwa zvakanaka mukati, hapana kana pressure.
Ini zvangu ndauya masikati ano, asi tavhota zvakanaka. Papasina kana pressure, mukati mamusina kana dambudziko.
With the voting process having ended this evening, the electorate is waiting in anticipation to see if their preferred candidates will be victorious.
2023 Zimbabwe decides. Yes, I can confirm that that is the closing procedure for the polling stations, marking an end to voting in the general elections for 2023.
Ndabuda panze ndatarisa apa tisina vanhu pakiu.
Tinotenda officer nguva ndichitarisa parizvino dzasvika 7 o'clock nokudaro nguva dzakwana taakuvhara polling station yedu.
I witnessed Mr. James Siamachira here at Gatu B polling station in Musarabani South constituency, closing this polling station after getting a report from the police officer that there are no more people in the queue, signaling an end to the voting process. And I can also confirm that reports from other areas in this constituency, which we have been covering, and also Rushinga constituency, confirmed that voters had cast their votes, exercising their constitutional right to vote in the 2023 elections.
Good evening, Zimbabwe. It's 3 minutes past 7, and behind me is a polling station at Gokwe South Rural District Council, which is just closed to signal the end of the polling day. And the day began in the morning when we visited Mafumo Primary School, where we had two polling stations, A and B, where we witnessed the opening of the polling stations with voters ready to cast their votes in Gokwe Central Constituency. And we moved on to Gokwe Nembudzia at Shinyetu Primary School, where we also witnessed a number of people wanting to cast their votes. By that time, we moved on from Gokwe Nembudzia constituency to Gokwe Chiroya constituency at Gwebo Business Center, and witnessed also huge numbers turning out to cast their votes. There we spoke to first-time voters who also were excited by the experience they got when they had to cast their votes. We went on to Gokwe Mafungautsi, where around 4 p.m. there were almost no people coming to cast their votes, where we spoke to those at the business center, indicating that the numbers were very high midday. And we also went on to Gokwe Sasame, where we also witnessed a number of people wanting to cast their votes at various centers. And also in the Nimangwe Business Center, we also witnessed that in some polling stations there were no people coming to cast their votes. We managed to speak to Chief Elections Officer for Gokwe Central constituency, Mr. Muzanenamo Mukokanduku, who gave us an overview of the day.
Yes, the election opened at exactly 7 o'clock in the morning, and right now they have just closed. And we are being given reports that all stations have closed. So it was just proper. We don't have any incident so far. We haven't got any report that there is not even a single polling station which haven't closed.
This has been the update for today from Gokwe.
We are currently in Norton constituency in Ward 5 at a polling station called Construction Tent A, and the presiding officer, Ms. Deborah Matoa, has declared the polls closed. As you're witnessing right behind me, they are currently sealing the ballot boxes, a sign that voting at this polling station has stopped. Well, they opened at 7 a.m. and voting took place up until 7 p.m. And when we got here, there was no one waiting to vote, meaning to say all those who were supposed to vote at this particular polling station exercised their right to actually choose the leaders who are going to be governing them for the next 5 years. Generally, in Norton constituency, the election went on smoothly as there was a peaceful and calm environment.
Observers accredited for Zimbabwe's general elections held this Wednesday witnessed the electoral process unfolding in various parts of the country.
There are several observer missions comprising various international organizations who have been in the country to observe Zimbabwe's general elections. This Wednesday was the climax, as the observer missions had an opportunity to witness the voting process. Former Mozambican President, His Excellency Joaquim Chissano, witnessed the opening of the David Livingstone Primary School polling station and expressed satisfaction with the process.
It was useful because they had time to explain all the arrangements. So, and the speed is it's starting in a good speed. So I hope that they are going to manage.
ZBC News also spoke to the head of the SADC Election Observer Mission, Dr. Nevas Mumba, earlier in the day about the electoral process.
We are still observing some of the things that are happening in the polling stations. We are not able to sort of acquire a position right now because we need to go through several polling stations. But we are glad that the situation is calm. There are no incidents, and we think this is a positive. That's what we've been praying for.
We are also observing that there are representatives of political parties who are there to observe. It looks like the electoral staff, they know what they are doing. It seems to be seamless within every station. So it's still too early, as we say, to make any positions around it. So basically it's observation and taking it all in.
The African Union, the European Union and the Commonwealth Observer Missions are among teams accredited to witness the country's polls, with the reports expected a few days after Election Day.
We cross over for a live update from our chief correspondent Ruben Barwe from Churu constituency.
Yes, still in the park in Churu constituency where the checking of papers, the ballot papers is currently underway. You know, there is a tendency, these are 3 elections which are carried simultaneously, carried once. You have the local authority elections where people are electing councillors, people are also electing national assembly parliamentarians, and people are also electing the president. So these are 3 elections held one day simultaneously. And there is a tendency that there are mixed hands. Those people who credit tobacco, they know what they call mixed hands. And they're trying to avoid that people could have dropped a local legislator a councillor's paper in the presidential box or a member of parliament in the presidential box. They're trying to sort out that so that we don't have mixed hands. And I have seen something here, the thorough verification which is currently taking place in the eyes of each and every person who is participating in these elections, including agents of political parties. They are all witnessing this to demonstrate the transparency that there is nothing untoward, including the postal votes, which they are looking at, and being counted right in the face of these agents. And as they unseal these boxes, they are trying also to verify even in the parliamentarians' box whether there are papers which were dropped there which belong either to the council or to the presidential box, so that you don't have mixed hands. So this is currently taking place, and this is happening across the length and breadth of this country. Over 12,000 polling stations are going through this process now. And at the end of the day, everybody is satisfied that everything was done above board. So we are watching as they go through the processes of opening the boxes, then checking whether there are no mixed hands, that the presidential ballot papers are in the parliamentary box, and everybody must be satisfied before the end of the day. So this is what is happening in this country as the curtains came down, as the voters, most of the voters have stopped voting at 7 o'clock, except a few where the ballot papers ended, they came late, and they will also be given their 12 hours of voting. You can see everybody's looking at those ballot boxes. If you watch over there, the election officials are going through to check each and every paper that it belongs to the member of parliament or the member of parliament box, so that there are no mixed hands at all. This is what is happening down here in South Lepak, part of the Churu constituency. You still remember Harare South used to be only one constituency, but because a lot of people registered to vote, there are now 3 constituencies: Churu constituency, South Lepak, then Manyame. This is what is happening. There are now 3 constituencies in Harare South, and this is part of Churu constituency, which extends right to Churu Farm, which used to belong to the national hero, Reverend Abaningis Tole. Back to you in the studios.
Thank you very much for that update, Ruben. Still to come in the main news.
In other news, a foreign currency auction system disburses over $4 billion United States dollars since its inception.
And in sport, the Premier Netball League returns this weekend with Platinum Queens clashing against ZDF Queens this Saturday.
Remember, these and more stories are available on our website www.zbcnews.co.zw.
And you can always follow us on social media at ZBC Online. We'll take a short break, but we'll be back.
Go and vote. Ndikuno vote. Vote muru nyararo. Ndikuno vote. Vote paka huya. Ndikuno vote. Vote muru nyararo. Asidi mbiri shonga. Sinodaru nyararo. Ndikuno vote. Chimboni tere mwana mai. Shingo vote. Ndikuno vote mwana. Vota monditera mwana mai votoka murunyararo atiwa mai vota hotelo yako mwana mai votaka watika tapo mwana mai vota wa mai vota murunyararo newe wa mai itasawa mai message is brought to you by Zimbabwe Election Support Network, ZESNE, promoting democratic elections in Zimbabwe.
On my wedding day, my husband said I was the most beautiful girl in Mutoko. But that was a long time ago. But now, I have started using Aura Beauty Soap. I feel vibrant again. People can't stop staring. It's rude. They should mind their own business. Just buy your own Aura Beauty Soap. New Aura Beauty Soap for skin that glows. From the House of Zimgold.
It's the Premier League, all on DSTV. All the goals, clashes, and moments. All of Rashford, Salah, and Saka.
The start is getting better and better and better.
All in HD.
Just makes no sense.
Available on all these bouquets to choose from. To watch on all these devices. Stay connected for all the action. It's the Premier League, all on DSTV.
Geo Pomona Waste Management Private Limited staff join our CEO and Executive Chairman, Mr. Dinesh Nguaya, in commemorating his 40th birthday. This milestone is benchmarked by his outstanding work ethic, philanthropy, diligence, and precision-driven leadership. Our entire team takes pleasure in celebrating this visionary patriot's birthday. His industrious genius is locating Geo Pomona Waste Management Private Limited at the center of national development. On this day, we celebrate his role in creating employment and pioneering private sector waste management innovation on a scale that Zimbabwe and arguably Africa have never seen before. We take pride in tapping from his distinct leadership qualities. May this special day be filled with love, joy, and laughter as it affirms God's gift of life to a servant leader.
Yes. This calls for direct delivery.
Welcome back. The Museum of African Liberation, which is under construction in Warren Park, Harare, is said to be an iconic feature and a stark reminder of the sacrifices that were made in the liberation of the continent from colonial bondage. As we celebrate Heroes Month, Lawrence Trusida takes a closer look at the importance of the museum.
The expansive Liberation City is home to the Museum of African Liberation, the Zimbabwe Defense Forces Exhibition Park, an animal and amusement park, the Heritage Village, and many other commercial facilities are designed to offer site visitors a holistic knowledge of African heritage in a relaxed environment. It is envisaged that for each African country, there will be a section of the museum devoted to its Liberation War history, which brings home the significance of the structure as the country celebrates Heroes Month this August. The curators of the museum have put emphasis on the need to tell the true African story with regards to sacrifices that were made by the heroes of the liberation struggle.
This is our story, which we are telling ourselves. No nation has ever succeeded in the history of mankind when it does not take the narrative into its own hand, because narrative determines respect. Narrative determines even perceptions that lead to investment, that lead to a favorable engagement with other players on the international arena. And we are saying in the last 600 years, Africa has never told its story. We have had and endured 600 years of decivilization, of destruction of our memory, destruction of our institutions, and our humanity indeed, through processes such as slavery, imperialism, colonization, and the like.
The project, which is expected to be complete in 24 months, is progressing according to set timelines.
Total, the project right now is a 20%, progress rate, and but it is important. It might look even slow, but because we're at the foundation stage. After the foundation, the rest are details. But the project is not just structural; it is also diplomatic. It is also about collection of artifacts, which we continue to do. Family after family of Zimbabwean and African liberation icons, donating their artifacts for permanent exhibition in this House of African History, House of African Memory, called the Museum of African Liberation.
Several heads of state, including Mozambique's President Filipe Nyusi and Namibia's President Hage Geingob, have already visited the Museum of African Liberation, thereby cementing its significance to the people of Zimbabwe and Africa at large. Lawrence Treseda, ZBC News, Harare.
We now cross over to our Montrose studios where Sibukele Maposa is on standby. Good evening, Sibukele.
Thank you very much, Terry and Joyce. It is a good evening, Zimbabwe. We carry on with the news. The introduction of the foreign currency auction system by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe in June 2020 has paid dividends after mobilizing Forex, which has sustained recovery of the manufacturing sector and growth of the economy.
In 2018 and 2019, the economy was grappling with an acute shortage of foreign currency for critical imports of raw materials and capital equipment, which affected the government's economic plans as manifested in low manufacturing capacity of below 35% on average. This scenario created a fertile ground for a flourishing parallel market of foreign currency before the central bank introduced the weekly foreign currency auction system in June 2020, aimed at mobilizing the hard currency through formal channels. According to statistics released by the Apex Bank, the platform has so far disbursed over $4 billion to various economic players, a huge trigger in the successful resuscitation of the manufacturing sector, where capacity has leaped to over 70% on average. Breaking down these disbursements, statistics show that during its year of introduction, $624 million was allotted in the 6 months of operation, with the figure growing to $1.97 billion in 2021, a period that witnessed the incessant importation of machinery, which went a long way in retooling the manufacturing and mining industries. In 2022, total allotments were slightly lower at $1.1 billion as signs of foreign currency saturation in the economy began to reflect. In the 6 months to July this year, the central bank has allotted $382 million bringing the total value of allotments to $4 billion and $93 million since June 2020. Alongside the other monetary measures introduced by the central bank, the economy has been on a sustained growth trajectory, averaging over 5% in the last 3 years, with the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe having come up with the right mix of policies to eliminate any potential threats to the economic growth targets as enshrined in the National Development Strategy 1 policy document. Owen Mandova, ZBC News, Harare.
We now cross back to Pocket Hill, where Joyce and Tari will give us more news.
Thank you, Sibu. Continuing with the elections update, voting will continue into the night in areas where polling stations opened later than 7 a.m., with the law stipulating that voting should last for exactly 12 hours. We'll link up with our reporters in those areas.
We can safely say it's done and dusted in terms of polling right here in Mashonaland East Province, Marondera East constituency at Inyagui Primary School, that is in Ward 1, where people have been voting since morning as early as 7 a.m. So they are done with the cast of votes. And this is one particular center where people trooped in very early, but at around 5 they were done, and the officials, electoral officials, were now seized with other matters, of course, awaiting 1 or 2 people to come through, but having none. So this is just but one of the 23 constituencies that are in Mashonaland East Province, and this is also one polling center of the 56 Marondera East constituency. And I have Valentine Mabugu, of course, who has been with me throughout the day, and with sentiments over how the day has progressed.
Limqoka Wellington namhla sesibonile abantu be votera abafuna ukuthi bebamelele ku parliament yase Zimbabwe lamakhansela lo mongameli welizwe njengoba sitsho uqhakatheka kwakhona ukuthi abantu bavuke ekseni bebuya bezovota, baqale ngokukhangela amabizo wabo akade efake ku voters roll athi namathisele emdulini esikolweni lapha inyangwini, yikho lapha abavuke khona bezovota bebona ukuthi amabizo abo khona, uthi ngehola lika 5 lantambama hayi umsebenzi usuphelile, bebe sebeqedile sebeyenze yonke into barejino aywa azavagwa vakuthongo mirira kuita zvinoitwa kana zvavagwa zvozoenda ku command center kunoitwa iyo pachirungu yaunoti meticulous verification of the results, and ndio yata kumirira manje kuti pa 56 polling stations zirimo mu Mashonaland and rather mu Marondera East dzosanganiswa dzese tuona kuti musarudzo vabudirira vawina ndivanani.
It's a very good evening. The voting process for the presidential, parliamentary and local authority seats progressed well in areas like Chitunguza, Seke, Makoni and Ziko. This news crew visited the aforementioned constituencies where both the electorate and elections officers confirmed a smooth process. However, in Manyame RDC, some 24 female voters as well as 18 male voters were turned away because they pitched up at wrong polling stations. Meanwhile, most polling stations have closed. They closed at 7 p.m. because they opened promptly at 7 a.m. Save for areas, polling stations like St. Mary's Muriadzi polling station, which opened at 9:45 a.m. Muriadzi polling station is expected to close at 9:45 p.m. for it to meet the required 12 hours.
We are here at Matezi Primary School in Wange West constituency, Wange district. The polling station here closed exactly at 7 o'clock. By that time, no one was queuing, and according to the presiding officer, 380 people voted in his polling station out of 563.
It is just
minutes after 7 p.m. and we've just witnessed the closure of Nyati, a polling station here in Chiredzi North constituency. And here I'm joined by the presiding officer of the polling station, who is going to briefly tell us how the situation went during the day.
Yeah, the situation was okay. There was no noise. Everything went smoothly.
During the day, this news crew visited polling stations, which include Rutenga Primary School and Chataugi Primary School in Mwenezi District, as well as Masimbiti Primary School, Uswaushava, and Dunuza Primary School polling stations in Chiredzi West constituency, where voters noted that voting progressed in a peaceful manner.
Good evening, Zimbabwe. Voting ended peacefully at all 65 polling stations in the Merengwa Central Constituency general election, with the process of verification and eventually counting starting after the 7 p.m. deadline. Constituents election officer Mr. Agon Gumbo said they did not meet any major challenges until the polling stations closed.
All polling stations opened at 7 a.m. in the morning, and then they closed at 7 p.m. There were no incidences of violence. The situation in all polling stations was calm.
There was huge interest from the voters as people could be seen gathering at polling stations as early as 6 a.m. in preparation for the voting, which started at 7 a.m.
Our reporters are still on the ground and they are dotted across the country to give us some more updates. Let's take a look.
It's exactly 10 past 7 p.m. at this polling center, and the curtain has indeed came down here in the Midlands province as most centers stopped voting at the 7 p.m. cutoff time. This ZBC News crew had a busy day of covering at least 7 constituencies all the way from Zhombe right through to Chundura. Here on, we managed to speak to some presiding officers at the various stations. We expressed dissatisfaction with the voting process, which started at the stipulated time of 7 a.m. at most polling stations.
Since morning we have no incident, and quite a good percentage voter, more than 60%.
Station opened at exactly 7 o'clock, and on the line there were 15 voters, 7 male and 8 female. Then by 9:21 we had 51 voters. The turned away, we still had 4. The reason being that they did not appear in the voters' roll.
Yeah, in the morning we had a queue of about 25 voters, but as the day progresses, the number reduces.
We also managed to speak to several voters who managed to practice their democratic rights in the general elections, who say the process was quite friendly.
Kodwa bangiphathe kuhle bangipha lesitulo sokuhlala bangikhangelela kuhle ibizo lami lasweleka kwendawo bangiphatha kuhle bathi gogo hamba ngale.
Thina silapha emaboleni, hayi thina sesivotile kodwa ayisiphathwe kuhle, azange sibone ukuhlukuluzwa, siphathwe kuhle ngendlela ezifaneleyo sivile.
Ngihle ngemukeleka ngithe ngisuke kukhangeleni ibizo bacela isithupha sami basibona mina ngoka41.
So it's now a moment of truth as the nation is gripped by anxiety as they wait for the official announcement of results after the conclusion of all the electoral processes by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission.
Good evening. We are at the Matabeleland North Province Command Center, where we will be speaking to Mr. Richard Sivanda, the Provincial Elections Officer, to shed light on how the hectic events of the day on over 920 polling stations have been throughout this day.
Yes, it has been a hectic day, as we have correctly said. And now we are through with our polling in all the polling stations. However, we've got only one polling station which closed later than the stipulated 1900 hours because they had opened later. However, they have done the continued 12 hours voting during the day. Therefore, we are now receiving statistics from various polling stations. However, we are having hitches. Some of our polling stations, they do not have network so far. But all those which the network, they have been communicated that they closed at 700 hours and they were having their statistics now.
Smooth proceedings it has been from what we gather here. We will be giving you more information as perhaps the night progresses and way into the next morning.
Main News takes a short break and we'll be right back.
This is the right choice, Zimbabwe.
Yes. This calls for direct delivery.
Right, our first order of business is to determine which constituency will be best served.
Point of order.
On what point of order are you raising up?
According to food chapter yethu, chapter 2, clause 6.
Yes.
Ithini ngokudla kuma meeting? Ngichasisele ukuthi ukuhamba njani.
Honorable Kukara, stand up and come forward.
Yes.
Nishikaficho, yanacho chikaficho, yanacho.
Take him out. Yes.
Chicken slice. Today is Wednesday. Wangu Wednesday. Let me dispose of this.
Enjoy Wangu Wednesdays with Chicken Slice. Get an extra free chicken piece or medium chips when you order a 2-slicer every Wednesday at Chicken Slice. I love it.
Go and vote. Ndekuno vote. Vote muru nyararo. Ndekuno vote. Vote baka uya. Ndekuno vote. Vote muru nyararo. Asidi mbiri shonga. Sinodaru nyararo. Ndekuno vote. Simboni tere mana mai. Ndekuno vote mana. Vota monitera mana mai votoka munyara atiwa mai vota votero yako mana mai votaka watika tapo mana mai vota wa mai vota munyara newe wa mai itasawa mai mwana zazo chema kutizazo dai inoda uipo mwana zazo chema tiazo dai This message is brought to you by Zimbabwe Election Support Network, ZISNE, promoting democratic elections in Zimbabwe.
It is a hallmark of solid cooperation, a testament of Zimbabwe and China's unbreakable friendship, which is rooted in a shared past and fortified by contemporary experiences. The Zimbabwe-China Traditional Chinese Medicine and Acupuncture Center at Barirenyatwa Hospital is yet another product of such unyielding bond between Zimbabwe and China. Established in 2020, the traditional
Yes. This calls for direct delivery.
Isuve National Peace and Reconciliation Commission tinokurudzira vose vari kukwikwidza musarudzo dza 23 August 2023 kuti vave muenzaniso wakanaka pakuumbiridza rudo nerunyararo pamwe nekumisa mhirizhonga.
Sikhuthaza ukuhambisana nokuzibophezela okusayine kunkatolo yokhetho kanye labasekeli babo ukuthi bahloniphe imigomo yokuthula, ukubambana izingxoxo, ukubekezelelana lokungabi lodlame ngesikhathi langemva kokhetho.
We reiterate our call for peaceful campaigns and peaceful elections for a peaceful Zimbabwe for all generations.
Peace begins with me.
Peace begins with you.
Peace begins with all of us.
Leandra.
all your chicken slice deliveries, simply call 086 77 00 8677 or download the app on Google Play Store. Chicken Slice. I love it.
Welcome back, and we continue with the main news. Voting will continue into the night in areas where polling stations open later than 7 a.m, with the law stipulating that voting should last for exactly 12 hours. We'll link up with our reporters in those areas.
Good evening. Today we have been moving around since 7 a.m. We began election coverage in Chipinge at Chipinge Junior School, where voters were trickling in as early as 7. We proceeded to Chimanimani, where we were observing and pretty much huge turnouts during the early hours of the morning, progressing into the afternoon. And around sunset, we're seeing numbers reducing. There were no cases of violence, according to several polling presiding officers across the three districts, that is Chipinge, Chimanimani, and Buwera South. Now we are at Macheta Primary School in Mutema Msikavanu constituents, where voting has commenced around 5 p.m. and is expected to end around 5 a.m. in the next morning. We were talking to some voters who expressed their dissatisfaction over how the processes went.
Panyaya kuti kuenda kumba ka tatomboenda kumba tingadzoka tikanonodyka saka izvezvi tautomirira kusvika tavhota hatibvi pana bati tinovhota
tichikungovhota hatisati tapera kuvhota
nanasi tichikundovhota saka zviri kutoitika izvika zviri kutotinesa nokuti kumakanyi kwacho totamba tichagume nguwai.
Taikumbira kudai zvaita kuti titenderwe kusvike petinokona kuvhota zvipo apapo takangwarirwa kuti vantu veshe zvione kuti zviri kuvhotwa mune zvakanaka.
Decision yatatotora zvine zvinonge kutomanikidza kuti tode kutovhota tipedze kuvhota.
According to officials presiding at this polling station, they had no voters roll. They also did not have enough voting material. We will be giving you updates as voting progresses.
Polling is underway and voters continue to trickle in here at Southlands polling station, which is under Harare South constituency. We do have a few voters who are trickling in to cast their vote. Zimbabweans are casting their votes today in the general elections as they elect president, members of the National Assembly, as well as councillors for local authority. Now here at Southlands polling station, they have 6 polling stations, and one of the polling stations which we went to, Southlands Cooperative Office, Tainted BB, we spoke to Miss Emilia Ndimba, and she is the recorder. She gave us some of the information in terms of the voters. She did highlight, of course, the official opening for the polling station is 7 a.m. was supposed to be 7 a.m. There was a delay and they opened at 08:26 hours, and reason being the ballot papers for the local authority were not in yet, so they commenced at 08:26 hours. We are hoping that we will make our way to the command center, which is the DDF. This is for Harare South, and hopefully we will get a chance to find out what will be taking place from there, whether we will then start to get to hear results from the different constituencies, from the different polling stations from the Harare South constituency. But as you can see, it's into the night. Not much activity now. The temperature has dipped a bit, but certainly we continue to keep you posted on a voting process.
Here in Bulawayo, where we're covering Bulawayo Central Constituency, Bulawayo South, as well as Pelandawa, Chabalala constituency, we visited a number of polling centers, Robert Strait Gold, Milton Junior, as well as Evelyn High School. And in most of these areas, voting commenced later. However, like there is a huge voter turnout in most of the areas, young people actually came out in their numbers to vote. So right now we're back at Evelyn, where voting commenced at exactly 12:37 p.m. this afternoon.
Meanwhile, there are 4 wards in Manicaland province and a few other areas where it is reported that voting did not take place this Wednesday owing to late delivery of ballot papers and mistakes on others. ZBC News spoke to legal expert Mr. Mofat Makwatsine on the way forward.
In terms of the law, once an election date has been set, nothing stops the holding of elections. And once elections have commenced, for them to be said they are elections, it is after all polling stations which are set in terms of the law have sent their returns or have concluded the elections in terms of the law as set out in terms of the Electoral Act. So if a polling station has not, for any other reason, received polling material or has received polling material in short supply, those are what they call logistical issues, which gives the constituent elections officer good cause to shift the time. So if we are looking at a situation where voting has not commenced at a polling station, that polling station cannot be said to be outside the voting time, because the law permits the shifting of the time to vote for good cause shown by the constituent elections officer. So where we have stations that haven't voted as of now, as long as the material or as long as what is giving the hiccup is available, they will be considered to be within the time frame set in terms of the law. So until such a time they will have conducted their votes, then that station is still within the polling day period.
And in sport, New Dynamo's head coach Genesis Mangombe is pleased with his team's progress after overseeing 2 victories since taking over from Herbert Marua.
Officially known as Kaka, Genesis Mangombe was elevated to the Dynamo's hot seat after Timbare parted ways with Herbert Marua a fortnight ago. Since then, Dynamos have played 2 matches, winning a Chibuku Super Cup first round encounter and a league match. Timbare beat Simba Bora 1-0 in the Chibuku Super Cup first round before dismissing Shisham 2-0 this past weekend in the Kasolaga Premier Soccer League. Mangombe's predecessor, Herbert Marua, was fired for lacking consistency, but the new coach believes his team is adapting well to his tactics ahead of Sunday's league clash with Simba Bora.
Some of the things will be identified as we progress. You can see we are trying to move the ball fast, and we are trying to force the players to play so that we play as a unity, we attack as a unity, and defend as a unity. So it's all about possession of football, and I know in the long run they are going to understand what we mean when we say possession of football. But I'm happy to the response, especially the intensity and also the way we are creating chances.
Dynamos are 4th on the PSL log table, 32 points, 9 are behind log leaders Highlanders. Lawrence Truseda, ZBC News, Harare.
And sport concluding the main news, but don't go far because we are now crossing over to our command center where our presenters Farai Gwaze and Ian Vambe are on standby with updates.
Thank you so much there to our Pocket Seller Studios team for giving us the link to the Harare International Conference Center, currently at the Command Center for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Of course, in line with the general elections taking place today, all polling stations officially opened at 7 a.m. However, some slight delays were experienced, most notably within Harare and Bulawayo with regards to some of the start-off times. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission highlighting earlier on during this morning through their chief electoral officer Utlile Slaikwana that some of the challenges had come up based on anomalies that were experienced in the earlier on process. I'm aptly joined here by Ian Vambe to be able to at least share some of the insights for the updates that we'll be giving you during the course of the electoral process.
Yes, of course, it's been a busy day in most parts of the country, as you rightfully said. There's also got the update from ZEC in the morning, but of course there were also some of the hiccups that also had some of the polling stations opening late. But ZEC did assure you that if your polling station opened at 12 p.m., it will close also at 12 midnight. If it opened at 11 a.m., it will close at 11 p.m. So the 12-hour moratorium will not be affected. So voting is still ongoing, but as soon as we have good updates, we'll be coming through live here on ZBC to give you what is happening around the country.
Yeah, and it also was highlighted by a sincere apologies, of course, for the delays that were experienced at the various polling stations in and around the country. However, of course, we do encourage those of you to still remain and ensure that you do cast your vote during this electoral process, and also appreciating another aspect that was highlighted by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission with regards to the polling station announcements of the candidates who would have won the local authority and the national legislative roles.
Yeah, earlier on, you know that we also saw some of our main presenters and main reporters during the main news earlier on to mention Ruben Barre was at some polling station where they were actually closing at 7 p.m. Most of them opened at 7 a.m. and now closing at 7 p.m. And those that are like you rightfully highlighted, mostly in Harare and Bulawayo, you will be getting more updates. Voting is still ongoing, and the message of peace has been emphasized throughout the day that Zimbabweans have been practicing their constitutional right in a peaceful manner. And you did say that it's going to be a different experience being introduced by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission of how results will be announced. Of course, as soon as that update will come through, you know where to get it first, live here on ZBC News.
Yeah, and of course also appreciating that with regards to the presidential candidate voter, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission having come up with extended a 5-day period to be able to give the final announcement of that particular result. And with regards to the results that will be coming in to the command center here at the Harare International Conference Center, we will ensure that as soon as the polling agents also do give those updates, our reporters throughout the country in all 10 provinces would be ensured to be able to give us the updates as they do progress.
The same way it was during the day. I know you managed to speak to a lot of other guests coming through as well and are crossing over to report voters from different areas of the country, from all the provinces. They get to tell us how has been everything. I've seen some of the voters who have been consistently doing so since 1980, also still coming through to exercise their constitutional right, and some of the first-time voters also coming through, getting to exercise their constitutional right. ZEC has been there since 7 a.m. and of course there are those hiccups that we highlighted, but of course the updates will keep coming as soon as there is so much to give you from ZEC. We will be live here on ZBC News to make sure we keep you informed.
Make sure that you do stay updated also on our social media platform. That's at ZBC News Online. We always appreciate your questions, comments, and contributions, and all the updates that we'll be giving you during the process of the elections. Make sure that you do take advantage of the updates that we will be giving you during the course of our election programming on our ZBC News channel. Unfortunately, that's it for us this evening, but make sure that you do stay tuned for more updates. That's it from us.
ZBC Current Affairs, leading the conversation on local, regional and international news. We bring you the stories that shape the nation and the world, be it social trends, economic and political developments, State of the Nation addresses, independence celebrations, Heroes and Defense Forces Day commemorations, and other national events. We bring them to you as they happen, with an array of informative